Good morning. The last 2 days I've been listening to great speakers, but one thing that has bothered me is most of the things that have been discussed in an elaborate manner pertain to mainstream, to the privileged. And I'm here representing the marginalized and the underprivileged, because what I want to talk about is how education and quality education must be available and accessible to all children. And many of the things that we discuss in conferences such as this, how can we take it back into the classroom, not just the privileged classroom, but classroom at the grassroots level or no classroom at all. So the purpose of education is actually to create children that are independent physically, psychologically, and emotionally. Children that are capable, patient, empathetic, non-judgmental, respectful, and responsible. Children that are sensitive to diversity, sensitive to the disadvantaged, sensitive to gender, sensitive to differently abled, sensitive to academically slow. And if we are able to create that kind of sensitivity, bullying in schools will reduce. Sensitive to the aged, to others' failures, to the traumatized, to the environment, and to all living things. That sensitivity is what we really need to concentrate on. So the 2017 Global Education Report said globally, education is in crisis. There are 260 million children that are out of school globally, of which 60 million children come from India alone. What is the Indian narrative here? The Indian narrative is there are 1.5 million schools in our country, 9.7 million teachers, there are 265 million students from pre-primary to secondary level. Of course, there are more in the higher education. So the Indian education system is the largest in the world, even larger than China. And do we sit back and say, we have achieved this? I think our pride should end there. Because the Indian narrative shows a different picture. There are 52 million children out of school, 17 million in child labor, 93 million children that are malnourished, 270 million people live below poverty line. And the juvenile delinquencies is increasing. More than 7.2% rise every year. And this is because children are not engaged in doing something more meaningful. And 50% of the crime is against women, which is really critical and tragic. So the critical problem here in Indian education system is how do we engage children in school, in learning, and reduce dropout. I think Dr. Anjali Prakash has said in the earlier session about all the things that an organization can do, and it's absolutely amazing. All of us need to focus on how do we engage children into learning. So, until 2018-19, the average dropout rate was 4.45%, and that is increasing. And in the secondary level, it's 18%. But those who are working at the grassroots level know that these are statistics that come out from the government, and real life picture is very different. In 2021, the education minister actually himself admitted that 150 million children are currently out of the education system. That's a large number. And girls are more at risk. As according to the National Rights to Education Policy Brief, 10 million girls are at risk of dropping out. This pandemic has showed how even during this kind of crisis, it is so genderized. Children, girls have been forced to stay at home even when schools have started opening because the parents were desperate to look for work and they had to look after the younger siblings. The number of child marriages have increased dramatically. In Karnataka, the state where I come from, there have been, in the last 3-4 months, there have been 287 child marriages. So, the national education policy, all of us that come from India are kind of celebrating for the first time after 36 years. We have a very, very forward-thinking national education policy, and I feel very humbled and proud that I have played a small role in shaping, tweaking some of the policy clauses for schools there, schools from primary school and secondary school. So one of the things that the national education policy has addressed is those that have dropped out can be re-engaged into education. And that's really for the first time. So vocational skills has been given a lot of focus, as well as creating a safe and engaging school education system is what we're talking about. And I think that is, for the first time, we're looking at the softer elements that makes a good school. So all this sounds very good when we discuss the policies, but what actually happens in the classroom? And I always talk about how do we implement good policies into the grassroots level. I am not I've 26 years in corporate life. I was a CEO of a large multinational company. I gave all that up. I started Parikrama Humanity Foundation from my kitchen table, and now with 165 children, with one school on a rooftop, and now we have 4 schools, a junior college, and a teacher training center for government schools. So we have grown, and I'm not from the academia, but I actually know how to implement strategies. And I have been doing that for the last 19 years. So I found that the real problem of government schools, real problem of schools, affordable schools, is that we don't really understand the profile of the children that come to government schools. For the last 23 years, I have been working in the slums, and I've developed a theory which I call the anatomy of the poor. To really understand what is it that stops these children from wanting to learn, stops these children from doing well academically in school, stops these children from continuing to complete their education. There are multiple deprivations that these children face. Of course, the socio-economic, the cultural deprivations, the educational environment. We've just heard about first-generation learners. First-generation learners have to deal with the parents not understanding study time, parents not understanding study space. They come from 100 square feet homes. We realize that because I walk through all these homes, we are working with about 100 slum communities, and it's so important to understand what is actually happening in their houses. And so we realize that it's not conducive to learning. The spaces are not conducive to learning. Then, of course, then there's the academic challenges in the classroom where, children are not, given the kind of attention that they need, and they then slowly fall back to a point where there is no return. Then, of course, there's psychological and non-academic challenges outside their classroom, their neighborhood. You know how important the impact of the neighborhood is on children? Why girls drop out of school after they reach puberty is because of the neighborhood. The neighborhood is full of unemployed youth that are not finding any meaning in their lives, who just hang around into antisocial activities. They are a big risk to young growing girls. And so therefore we find that it's very important to get 2-3 girls from one slum coming to school, because they give each other company. And once one girl or 2 girls drop out, the other ones are at risk of dropping out as well. So this is what I call, I hope you can see it, the biometrics and the psychometrics of the slums. So, we hear about lack of running water, lack of toilets, girls having to stand in a queue to use the common toilet, so therefore they get late to school, poor sanitation, lack of primary health care, no access to education, lack of secure housing, lack of nutrition, and then the parents have no bank accounts. They have no collaterals. So they are what I call under the grips of what we call the vulture funds, where the interest rate is as high as 33%. The biological, they have worm infestation, lack of immunity, lack of energy, frequent illnesses. That's why they are irregular in school, and once they get irregular, then they slowly drop out. Exposure to abuse, witness to frequent alcoholic violence at home. We started giving our children just one deworming tablet at the beginning of the year, and that was miraculous, because just one deworming tablet makes the child becomes healthier, child has more appetite, child is therefore a lot more regular. Then the intellectual poverty that we're talking about. There's lack of role models, lack of worldview. Their world just ends there. They cannot think of anything bigger. Lack of critical thinking. So they get moved away like a herd, following something that they don't quite understand. Lack of problem solving, lack of long-term planning. Education is long-term. It's a long-term gestation period. But these children, families cannot think long-term. Poor cognitive ability and inability to make a roadmap. But most importantly, I think, the real deprivation is psychological, because they have lack of aspiration. We heard Anjali talk about, they have no aspirations. They have lack of aspiration, it's very common. No, they don't know how they can escape. The only way some girls think of escaping is eloping with a rowdy in that community, because they seem to get promises, rosy picture, and so they just run away. And then they get into a worse situation later on. There's uncertainty, lack of resilience and grit, low self-esteem, poor self-image, lack of conventional shame. I mean, there's no point in telling a child that is coming from the slums, particularly a desperate slum, that you should be ashamed of your behavior. They don't understand that. They don't understand what is shame in the stereotypical conventional way. Poor decision making, sense of abandonment. Most of our children that we are working with have their fathers moved away. They have sense abandonment, and many family children have their mothers also get into moving away and abandoning the family. So you can imagine what happens to a child coming from that kind of family. Fear of discrimination, prone to violence, suicide is the norm. This is the most tragic thing. I mean, we are having to deal with suicides every year. Thankfully, less of our children, but suicide of family members, community members is a common thing. And that is very destabilizing. And there's continuous simmering anger. So, in this kind of background, where the children come from, and all, I mean, I think about more than 150 million children go to government schools, both in rural as well as in urban cities. The government schools lack sensitivity. We work closely with the government schools. We have now been invited by the Karnataka government to adopt government schools. So we don't go into the Parikrama philosophy is to do a total comprehensive turnaround, not just looking at education, not just looking at nutrition, but a total turnaround, because we want children to come out and not look back. And we work very closely with government schools. We've adopted 5 government schools. We are in the process of adopting more. We should be having adopted about 15 now. So we're talking about, on an average, we'll be talking about at least about 2,000 other children and their families. So, and I think, having worked closely with government schools, one of the things that they lack is sensitivity. So sensitive schools are safe and respectful environment that enables children and students to build caring relationship with adults and peers and self-regulate the emotions. That is very important. How do we get them to be more rational and less emotional? And succeed academically while supporting their physical health and well-being. This is what a sensitive school should be. A sensitive school has a healthy school climate where the children should want to come to school. It has well-defined policies and procedures and protocols that require inclusion of all key stakeholders: administrators, educators, students, their families, and communities. I think getting administrators, so we, NGOs like us, began with the students, and we've now started working with educators, we started working with teachers, but it's very important, if you're wanting to work with the government, to start working with the administrators as well. So we did a comparative study. As I said, I've been doing this research for the last 23 years, and I did a comparative study of a very small number, 50 private school children, high-end private school children, 50 government school children, and 50 Parikrama children. And not academic, didn't compare academic grades, and this is kind of the first time this kind of study has been done, because most comparisons are always grades, academic grades. But we talked about the personality factors. Because the personality, as I indicated in my earlier slide, it's that what determines the desire to do well. So the personality factors, we stretched academic factors, but not grades in geography and English, but actually their desire and attitude to learn. And then, of course, we looked at relationships, because I think relationships are very, very important to create that resilience and grit that we want children to have. So we did that comparison, and we asked very simple questions. Like, even when I fail at something, I remain calm, cheerful. And you will see the private schools have done much better, government schools way below, and Parikrama schools are kind of in between. Not better than the private schools, because the kind of support system that the private schools have with the family, and Parikrama is trying to do that, but it'll take us a little time. And then questions like, I like challenges that make life exciting. And you see, government school children do not want to take risks and face those kind of challenges. Then academic factors is, we ask the question, simple things like, I like brain teasers, I like to play chess, I like quizzes. And again, the government school children are way below. Private schools children are doing better. And Parikrama is again in between, not too below the private schools. And this, I'm talking about really high-end elite private schools, not international schools, but elite private schools. And then question is, I believe that some people are talented and lucky because they are born that way. And you see that the government schools very, very high, because they really believe that they are not born that way. And that is the saddest part. Relationships. The government school children believe that their parents or teachers do not think they can do well. And the government school children think that they are not safe at home. How tragic is this? It's really heartbreaking to see young children think that way. So these are two snapshots of a Parikrama school, Parikrama children. Look at on the left. This is where they come from. This is my student's house. But he is joyfully wearing his school uniform to come to school. And this is where my students come from. The mother is a maid, illiterate. Father is a daily wage labor and alcoholic. 98% of our fathers are alcoholic. 92% of our children have someone in their family in jail. The monthly comprehensive income is $125 a month to feed 5. And it's illegal shanty, about 50 to 100 square feet space inside the slum. So when I talked about neighborhood, I talked about this neighborhood. So as against this, what have we tried to do? So in the 4 schools, right now we have 2,000 children, a junior college, and we have had more than 1,000 children who have graduated from Parikrama in the last few years. We are showing 96% attendance. Less than 1% dropout. I think that is something that is a great achievement from our end. Whereas in government school, the number would have been 63%. Okay, so 100% attendance in parents-teachers meeting. We applaud fathers who come to the parents-teachers meeting. They give up their daily wage to come to the parents-teachers meeting. 95% teachers' attendance, and 98% of our students go to college. Why? How are we doing it? The Parikrama model, we call it the circle of life. We are giving high-quality CBSC, the central board, English medium education. Because I know there can be a debate about vernacular versus English language, but the reality is I want my children to attend a conference like this and to feel equal and in no way inferior, because they are not able to speak the language. So English is a business language. We want them to get a good job, they have to be able to manage in English. So it's an English medium school. We give all 3 meals in the school itself. When I say 3 meals, to be honest, it's 2.5 meals. We give them breakfast, we give them lunch, and we give them a snack with a protein mix before they go back home. We want them to go back home. It would have been far easier for us to have a residential school, but we don't want to have a residential school because we want our children to be catalysts of change in their community. We take care of the health care from immunization to hospitalization, and we work very closely with the families. We do de-addiction program, we do vocational skills program, so the quality of life of the parents are also improving. If they began as a maid, now with the training that they've got, they have now become housekeepers, they're working in hotels. So we are seeing a gradual improvement of the entire quality of life. And it's an end-to-end model. Our children come at age 5, and they're with us till age 25. Now, from kindergarten, they finish grade 10, they do grade 11 and 12, and then they go to universities that we sponsor, and we actually help them be placed in jobs. So many of our students are doing engineering, medicine, law, design for change, a bachelor's in business management, and some of them are also studying aeronautics. So here is one of my students who's a software engineer in Cisco. I have students who are here in Dubai. I have 3 students that I picked up from the streets, and now they're bank managers working in retail outlets and actually sending money back home every month so that the families improve. So the alumni validate the Parikrama model. They say that, they are more confident than their age group in the slums itself. They say that I'm doing far better, able to take better decisions, and of course I'm earning much more. So these are some of the Parikrama best practices. We have something called a friendship bench. The children have that on top. You can see that it's a bench where any child who is feeling sad, distressed, sits there, and anyone passing by can sit beside and make the child feel better. Because just being able to listen to someone makes a huge difference. Then we have something called a kindness project. We assess schools that we think have been kind, and we have also metrics to measure that. We have something called a yellow room. Many of my kids are real football, soccer fans. So we brought in the yellow card and the red card into the classroom. So when they are truant and misbehave, we send them to what we call a yellow room. Below is a yellow room. It's a beautifully colored room, so they go there and they spend time listening to music, talking to a teacher that has been assigned to yellow room, and they begin to reflect and hopefully reform. They call us akkas and annas, not sir and ma'am. I am everybody's akka. Akka is elder sister, and annas. This family feeling has helped us a lot. We have an appreciation post box where children are asked to, if they feel like, to write little notes of appreciation for someone, their teacher, the security guard. But it's the school dog that gets the most appreciation, because each school has a dog. That's another story where we took in Shakespeare, and I have Titania, Cleopatra dogs. Then we have a global read program where all our children are reading books across with other schools around the world. Then we have a circle time where they all sit in a circle and take decisions about where to go. and we have quality heads that look at is Parikrama, each school that we have, is it following the Parikrama way or the Parikrama conscience? And I'd like to just quickly show you a short film.
Industry has a side to it that is seldom seen. This bleak situation begs the question, can the poorest children from these slums ever get access to quality education?
This is painted by our children on the walls of each of our schools.
Parikrama was founded in 2003 to impart quality education that prepares the poorest of poor children for life. Through the sheer quality of its education, it has been revolutionizing the way we educate our poor.
You first have to change yourself and then try to change the world.
To ensure that the child is ready to pursue dreams, the Parikrama model has an end-to-end program by providing education from KG to 12. Parikrama provides scholarship and professional training for children to go through universities or even vocational training before placing them in jobs.
It's been 8 years since I've been working in Parikrama. It's been a great experience so far. A happy moment for me was to see the children really doing well in their 10th and then later on picking up good offers in companies and definitely speaking wonderful English.
But serving the poorest of the poor means challenges in the path. The children come from households which are filled with violence and despair. And none of the parents have been to school. To ensure that the child continues to learn despite the stifling economic conditions, Parikrama has adopted a 360-degree development program that includes total nutrition, comprehensive healthcare, and family care. It's the circle of life the Parikrama way. Today, we witness a miracle as a proud ex-student, now a student of law, returns to the school for a happy reunion.
It's very important for us to stay connected, and the reason why I want to be connected with y'all is because I look at y'all as role models for the younger children. Okay, Shukla, now you're working in an IT company, right? Well, now that you're doing your biotechnology, you're preparing for your chartered accountancy exams, yeah? So, if anyone has to fall ill, please fall ill and go to Manipal Hospital because she's the nurse there. You're an entrepreneur, that you're now a hotel professional. Okay, now Jalajakshi, you are very special. You're now a teacher in Parikrama. So one of the questions that I want to know from you is, all that you learned from Parikrama, are you being able to apply it in the outside world?
I've learned a lot of things from Parikrama. The confidence that I have now is because of Parikrama. And the knowledge that I've gained, I think that is also because of it. So I think I'm nowhere less to any other student in class, and I stand up.
Do you all remember the Parikrama motto? How does it go? Explore and excel.
Parikrama remains passionately committed to transforming lives through top-class education.
I enjoy debating because I can express my point of view and I'm second to none.
Am I inferior to anyone? Not me.
And we Parikrama earned this special mention.
And in the process, to influence an entire system to change.
No bridge too far, no mountain too high. On Parikrama on you must try, try, try. No bridge too far, no mountain too high. On Parikrama on you must try, try, try. No bridge too far, no mountain too high. On Parikrama on you must try, try, try. No bridge too far, no mountain too high. On Parikrama on you must try, try, try. Honesty, integrity shall flow in our vein. Care and compassion, humanity shall reign. To walk with our heads held high. On wings of love we shall fly, fly, fly. No bridge too far, no mountain too high.
Thank you.
On Parikrama on you must try, try.
That was beautiful, wonderful. There are no words to express all the work that you are doing for these children. Thank you very much, everyone. You have a question? Yes?
Yes. You have a question? Yeah.
So how many Parikrama schools do you have right now, and in which location of the country?
I have 4 schools and 1 college. They're all in Bangalore right now. But we have started adopting government schools that are in Karnataka, but outside the city, in rural Karnataka, semi-rural and rural Karnataka.
Planning to expand that in the entire country, and what is your plan on the same? Because these kind of requirements are there everywhere in India especially, and of course there are other countries too. And another question before I'll hand over the mic to you. With this kind of population, or I would say the target segment you're working, one of the biggest challenge we have seen is the mindset of the parents that, if these children will learn or go to the school, how will they earn their daily wages? So how do you, compensate, or how do you kind of work towards that mindset and make them agreeing to send their children to the school?
Okay, first question. Yes, we are planning to expand to the other cities in the country. We have developed we believe in scaling, not of infrastructure, but scaling of the idea. And that's what we're planning to do, and we are scaling the idea through teachers. We are creating a module we have already created a module by which we resurrect pride in the teaching profession. And once teachers begin to feel proud of the teaching profession, I think they get a lot more involved with their students. And involvement is what is lacking in schools for the marginalized. Because some teachers don't even know the names of their students. We go, and that's the first requirement we ask for, is you should know the names. You should have visited their families. You should have interacted with the parents. Because that relationship is what will make the difference. What we do is we've created a teacher training module and we've gone online. So it's a hybrid. I believe that while we're doing it online, we also need to connect. So we have psychologists working with teachers of government schools, making them feel good about their choices of the profession. So that's your first question. Yes, we are planning to expand. We want to go to at least about 200 more schools. We have trained online about nearly 2,000 teachers, and we want to expand that. So we are also getting into translating the modules. We've done it in Kannada. We're now going to get it done in Hindi, and we're going to expand, yes. The second is all parents, irrespective of which family background, irrespective of their wealth or lack of wealth, want their children to do better than themselves. And if they feel confident that, yes, sending them to school, the child is wanting to go to school, the child is feeling good, and the well-being of the child is there, they do send. And what we have taught our parents, and that is with our constant family counseling, we meet the parents once a month, all classes parents once a month, which is a huge task. I have a team of social workers who do it. But that's social workers, we call it community development centers. They play a very pivotal role in this. So we tell them that if you get deprived of the daily wage now, you will get a lot more 12 years down the line. And they're seeing it in role models. There are kids that are from Parikrama, from that same community, who are living, like these 3 kids that are in Dubai are earning so much more, supporting the family. The family is moving out from the slum. They're seeing that. So they know that the promises that we are making are genuine, validated promises. So they are always with us.
I have a question. So the last 2 years, I mean, before that, you've been doing a phenomenal job, and I think first kudos to that. So I really like the kind of model that you are applying. So over the last 2 years, what were some of the challenges that you came across with your model specifically, and how you overcame?
The COVID,
Yep.
during the COVID?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so happy you asked me that question. I think we did a Herculean task of, we raised funds, and remember, we are a charitable organization. We are dependent on benefactors. So we had to do drives to get second-hand phones. We realized that so many people, my friend circle, your friend circle, have 2-3 phones at home. We said, and this is lockdown, when nothing is going on. Only Dunzo was working at that time. So we said, Dunzo it to us. Dunzo is a courier company. So Dunzo your phone to us, and we got our teachers we supplied laptops to them. They didn't have laptops. We supplied them, and we did online training of the teachers. And in Karnataka, schools were shut for 18 months. But we were shut. It took us about 3 weeks to get round, and our schools have been running, and the attendance has been about 90%.
Thank you.
So can you talk a little bit, you talked about grit and resiliency in the kids. In order to get grit and resiliency in your kids, you have to have it in your staff. How do you help your teachers develop their grit and their resiliency and counteract burnout?
Yeah. Working with adults is more challenging than working with children. So we've had to really do workshops with we run a program called Personal Growth Lab, where you as an individual has to grow. And this has worked very well with us. So we call it the Parikrama way of doing things. So you have to you have to think about life differently. You have to have a larger perspective in life. Your worldview has to increase. And when your worldview increases, you realize your problem is not that big at all. And it needs continuous, because adults have a great habit of falling back. So we have to revive them and bring them back. So we are working, I have to tell you, we haven't arrived, but we are constantly working at it. I'm very happy that the suicide rates have come down in our community. And when a suicide happens, we talk about it. We discuss it and say, life goes on. Nothing has happened. Who's suffering? So, these kind of real looking, and we have a program called Parikrama Mirror. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror, and when you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, there's possibility of growth.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, madam. That is really a very inspirational one, and you have thrown a lot of light on us. And I too agree that when I have seen your presentation, even when we were working at ground level, as well as even my personal life story also, I have reimagined everything. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I was from a government school and Telugu medium student, so I'm here. So what I have understood majorly is like, especially the students who are going to the government school, the major setback is insecurity and inferiority. These are the two problems.
Yeah. True.
Insecurity we can counter with many ways.
Yeah.
But however, when it comes to inferiority, I have seen even in my local village as well as even in our experiments also, majority times the dropouts are happening because of inferiority also.
Absolutely.
The reason behind that is the day when a kid goes to a school, we try to promote them that we want to teach something in English majorly,
Yeah.
and we will try to push them to learn that immediately.
Yeah.
That's where the problem comes. They won't understand what exactly the teachers are trying to say.
Yeah.
And when some of the neighbor students are able to speak in fluent English,
Yeah.
immediately they feel
That's
very
why we
inferior.
chose English medium. Because that
yes.
gives them, it's an empowering. Unfortunately, but we've leveraged it.
Yes.
The language is empowering.
Yes.
And they feel equal. What we do, it requires great amount of guts
Yeah, exactly.
and ability to deal with failure. What we do is we send all our children to all high-end international, national schools competition.
One
So
last,
in the first few years, they always came with a consolation prize out of compassion and all that. But today, I have 3 of my students that are Ashoka Fellows. I have 11 of my students that got selected for the Global Youth Leadership Summit and represented the country in San Diego. Getting a passport done for a student like this that does not have an address, To get a passport done, you need an address, a door number. Many of my children don't have doors. So we got it all done. But sending them all the way to San Diego, they came back with such boosted confidence. These are the things that have a ripple effect on. So my kids never feel inferior. I am worried that they should not feel too privileged.
correct.
That's my worry because they are clearly far better than the community there.
Madam, one last question, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind if the organizers
Ladies
don't.
and gentlemen, we're going to take one last question, please, to move on.
Yeah.
That will be me then after that, yeah?
We can reconvene afterwards and
Yeah.
continue. It's just that the award ceremony will be held in the next room, and it has started already.
So
I
why
only
don't
need one,
you?
I'll
Yeah,
only
why
need
don't
1
you?
minute
Yes,
after this,
yes.
gentlemen. Please.
Yeah, you please carry on. I give that 1 minute.
One more,
Just-
one more
We can
question.
we can talk.
Yeah,
later.
yes. Let him speak.
Yeah.
That's really kind of you. Thank you very much. So first of all, I just want to say it's absolutely amazing how holistically I think you're approaching this education. I think you've nailed it really by making sure that you address all of those environmental factors in that circle of life first, really be successful. I'm hugely impressed with that. I would like to maybe outside of here speak to you a bit more about the kind of funding, and I really see lots of opportunity for us to work together. I'm working with lots of families who would love to support
Yeah.
a cause like yours.
That
so
would be
perhaps
great.
we can link up and have a conversation about that.
Fantastic.
Thank
Thank
you so much.
We
Thank
need
you.
that
Thank
kind
you.
of collaboration and support. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Bose. That was beautiful.